Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really cool watch for you from a channel first. This brand is actually quite cool. It is Mühle Glashütte, which is of course founded out of Germany. They're a micro brand. Well, I mean, I wouldn't even really call them a micro brand as much as they are an independent brand. With a very long history of producing mechanical gauges of all various types. But as far as the timepiece category of it, they started out doing marine chronometers, and then they moved on eventually to wristwatches and whatnot. But I mean, this company dates all the way back to the 1800s, and then I believe, and then in 1927 may have been their first actual wristwatch. So very cool company. They've been around for quite a while, and I have had my eye on them. And this particular model is, of course, a pilot's watch. Some key common characteristics in the design language. When you're looking at a pilot's watch, you're really just going to want that balance of legibility and functionality, because it's just really a tool-oriented timepiece. This particular model is called the Terrasport II, and it essentially is Moule's take on a classic A-dial Flieger or pilot's watch. So with that said, let's go ahead and get this piece in hand to take a closer look. Okay, now as you can see, very classic looks here, fantastic silhouette, really everything you would expect of a classic Flieger A-dial style watch, but really just a very complete package, which I really enjoy about this watch. One of the nice things is, it does come on bracelet. Normally pilot's watches are on a leather strap. I do enjoy a good bracelet, and this 5-link bracelet definitely suits that very German aesthetic, which I really do enjoy. Now, these watches normally retail for about $1,900, but I was able to actually find these from a dealer called The Luxury Well. I'll leave a link in the description because the pricing is just absolutely fantastic. They have these going for $999, so just under $1,000, and you get a lot of watch for your money. Now, I know a couple of you are probably thinking of, honestly, these types of pilot's watches have become so popularized. There's tons of people that are out there that are making them, plus there's the original brands that made them back during World War II, and then pretty much, most micro brands out there are coming out with their own take on this particular model. What I think really differs here is just the level of, the level of design, the finishing, the branding, and the company as a whole. I think they really have something extremely special here, and at the price of under $1,000, and this is with a full warranty and everything, box papers. This is pretty insane. So quick little plug, I guess you could say, for the Luxury Well. Essentially, they will go around to authorized dealers, and they will purchase watches in bulk. So they'll purchase a nice little stack of them, save a little bit of money, and then pretty much sell them at wholesale price. So pretty outstanding. I mean, I was looking at some of their listings, and they had a lot of awesome stuff there from all types of different brands, specifically Grand Seiko. So I'll definitely be looking to their site and their company in the future for kind of any of those upper tier models that I'm gonna hopefully be able to save a little bit of money on. So I just thought I'd pass on that news to you guys, because I was very impressed with the pricing structure there and their whole philosophy, and that everything is new and everything actually has working warranties, which is pretty nuts. So really quickly, the diameter and everything, the specs on this guy is about perfect. It's 40 millimeters. It's a 10 millimeter thickness here. And of course, it's all brushed stainless steel. And then it does have that flat sapphire crystal with the inner AR coating. And as you can see, even when I put it under direct kind of reflection here, you're not going to see any weird hues of any colors, which is really nice. So it's a much clearer take on the AR coating. It's not going to be kind of as blued or purple or any kind of weird funky tone as you might find in other coated sapphires. Now, of course, the bezel is fixed and fully brushed there, as you can see. And then we do have a screw down crown, which is really nice, which assists with getting that 10 bar or 100 meters water resistant. Which I think that water resistance is just about perfect for a watch like this. I mean, it's nice to have more, but 100 meters and with a screw down crown pretty much means you can really trust in this watch being water resistant in pretty much any case that you're going to have it in, besides some pretty heavy water sports or, diving and whatnot. And then you can see that the crown is signed with a windmill, because that is actually what Mühle is in German, I believe. So definitely chime in. And you know what? The finishing actually on the crown is actually like a very fine blasting there. So really nice. I think it adds a little bit of visual interest there. And looks just really handsome and well put together. Now, the really nice thing here is we have this automatic sleeve movement, but this is no, standard sleeve movement. This has actually been nicely modified. Let me see if I can get that in there. Nicely modified by the team over there. And this brand really, not just a custom rotor, but as you can see, if we can get it up there. There we go. You can see they actually have that woodpecker neck regulation. And then, of course, they do have the custom rotor and custom finishes and decoration. But that... Oh, I kind of don't want it to focus on the clasp. There you go. And you guys can always look up this movement. It's a quick Google search. But as you can see on there, basically, that woodpecker neck, it's similar to like a swan neck design, but it's actually a bit more shock resistant. And then also, of course, offers the same type of advantages as far as the really micro adjustments, because you can turn that screw and it pushes that arm there. Oh, here's a nice little, if I can, there we go, get a decent look at it. Sorry about that. Really nice, and you can see it is quite handsomely finished. It does have blued screws and whatnot. It doesn't have a ton of crazy perlage or anything, but it is really finely done, and this is hardly something that you would find, let's say, in my Oris Big Crown Pro Pilot, which is a very, very standard sleeve movement with basically just a painted rotor. This thing is actually really nicely modified, and I'm very impressed with that. Now, so apart from the Mühle spec movement, which is really great, the case back, of course, is clear. And it does have, basically, it just has that light etching there, where you can see it just has some very basic specs in there, which is very nice, and I think, keeps in with that kind of minimalist tone there. Now, the dial is, of course, a very nice matte black, which you would really expect for this type of watch, which makes it ultimately legible, especially with that very clear crystal there. You feel like you can really just reach right in to that dial and touch everything. And as you can see, everything is very sharp and finely done, which I can definitely appreciate from an execution standpoint. It does have those, basically the metal hands, which I wouldn't call them polished. They're more of a satiny finish there. You have the red tipped seconds hand, which is really a nice touch, and then also the red tip there at 12, which I think is great. It does also have the date nicely integrated, I think, in a really different way. It's very undisruptive. Normally you'll kind of see it sandwiched in between maybe the 4 and the 5. Like you'll see on my Zen 556A, or other models to kind of do that, where they'll offset it, cut it out somewhere else. But I think actually right there by the 3 o'clock, the execution that they've done, they basically only, it looks like they've barely had to slide over that three. If they had to slide it over at all, and they really have it in there. And then, of course, because it is a black disc with the white font, it integrates really well, and you don't necessarily see it unless you're looking for it. Upon a quick glance, you can definitely look at the time, and then if you want to see the date, you're going to see the date. If you're not focusing on the date, it's not going to jump out at you, which is, I think, a really nice feature, and just a really key part of why this particular design is just so interesting, and I think so well done. It does have super luminova as far as the lume goes. It glows a green tone, but the nice thing is it's actually quite white here, in daylight. So I'm going to assume this is maybe like a C1 mixture. And this is a pilot's watch, so it's not a huge lume beast or anything like that. It does have 20 millimeter lugs, and then it has this great, of course, solid end link bracelet, solid links, and then it does have push pins here. But you know what? These are probably the nicest push pins I've ever seen. They actually are like fully polished and just like really, really nicely done, unexpected, like to a high level that you really wouldn't expect. It doesn't need to, because you don't really see them unless you're actually changing these out. But of course, me being kind of a watch nut, I do change out all my own links and whatnot. I size bracelets myself, so it's something I could definitely appreciate, that it was just like kind of a hidden gem there that they also, although they're not screw-in, the nice thing is, of course, you don't have to ever worry about these getting stripped or adding Loctite or anything like that, because they are friction, and then of course they are quite nice quality, so I don't really foresee them slipping out anywhere. Maybe give you guys a closer look. As you can see, really nicely done. And then, this is fully polished because it is going to be on your wrist and whatnot. So it's nice, nice feeling against it, you could say. And then this does have that great, 5-link style, which definitely ties in. And, if you've seen something like maybe the IWC, I believe they're Mark XVIII on bracelet. It's definitely a certain look, and I think it fits that aesthetic so beautifully. Now, some of you are looking at this and thinking, hey, that really reminds me of this watch, which has made many appearances on here, the Stova Flieger Classic 40 millimeters. Of course, it doesn't offer, the full bracelet and whatnot, but it's basically an A dial. Has a very nice movement, a top grade movement, if you will, and it actually is slightly modified, but it's more for the sake of, customization and style and whatnot. So you can see there, the rotor is meant to mimic the regular old case backs, the closed case backs of the old school original Fliegers. And of course, Stova was one of the originals. But it's a really great watch. They do have similar profiles. Although they are about the same thickness, essentially the profile of the case, it does appear a bit thicker because of kind of the height of the bezel and the back there. But they're I'd say they are very comparable. But this watch, although I love Stowa, absolutely fantastic timepiece, great everyday watch. This one, the thing I like about it is that I really like the branding. I like that part of it. I think the dial symmetrically and everything, the layout, the color play is actually quite excellent. And it just feels like a more complete sports watch, versus this feels a little bit more niche. I wear this and I know that not everybody's going to even know what it is. And of course, you can get a branded one and whatnot. Can't get them on bracelet. I think this is still a really great value. But one of the things that you get here is you're just gonna have just a more complete package, which I really, really enjoy. So with that said, let's go ahead and get this. Okay, as you can see on the wrist, wears absolutely perfectly. You're really going to want, when it comes to a pilot's watch, something that's going to read very bold and really have some wrist presence to them, because it is, at the end of the day, it's a tool for telling time. Instantly legible, really great, beautiful look to it. And it's, although it's only 40 millimeters, it still visually has enough visual weight to feel very large and legible, which I think is great, because there's definitely watches that just don't fill up their real estate quite as well as a nice A-dial style Flieger. And I think this one does an extremely good job. Definitely wraps the wrist really well. So love the way this one wears. Love the way it looks on the wrist. It just feels great as far as the comfort goes. It definitely packs a punch visually, which is really nice, but because of its, relatively thin svelte case and whatnot, that non-tapering bracelet, it does have enough visual weight while still maintaining really pretty much perfect modern kind of sports watch, everyday watch proportions. So really impressed from that standpoint. Let's go ahead and get some low light transition shots going. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights. As you can see, really nicely done. It definitely does the job. It's not some crazy Lume beast or anything. I don't think that's C3. But the nice thing is that it actually reads quite white, which is really nice. And during full daylight there and whatnot, but it really does the job. It definitely has the right amount of lume. Could it have more? Yes. But does it really need to? No. It's just, it is what it is, and it is quite usable. But let's go ahead and move into some low light transition, because let's be honest, you're not always going to be in direct sunlight, which is something that my studio lights do a good job of simulating direct sunlight. But in all actuality, you're going to be transitioning from, in and out of a vehicle, in and out of buildings and whatnot. So to get an idea of what the colors and the depth in the dial, really look like, it's nice to get a little bit of that low light transition. Also, it gives you a good idea of the lume and kind of, how you're really going to be reading it. And then another thing is you can actually get a good idea of the finishing on these steel, cases and the brushing, because you can look at the way the light actually plays and the way that it rolls off of the links and the case. You can see the uniformity here. Now, of course, with the bright studio lights, a lot of that gets washed out, but here you get a nice idea of all, this really should expose a lot of little imperfections. And you can see there that it actually is finished very nicely, which is great. So as my camera kind of adjusts back to being fully lit there, we'll get the closing thoughts on the wrists. Like I said, it really has enough visual punch to feel like like a pilot's watch, like a pilot's watch should. It should feel a bit larger. But it's really, it achieves that visual weight. At the same time, it's really well balanced on the silhouette of an everyday kind of sports watch, which is great. As far as model variants go, they actually do have a cream dial option, which is quite handsome. And or you could do the black dial, and then you could either do it on leather or on bracelet. I chose bracelet just because you just don't see very many braceleted options for these types of watches, and to me it's just like, a no-brainer. I think these look gorgeous on bracelets, so it's really nice to see that, especially on something that just feels so traditionally correct. And although, yeah, they're not one of the first producers of the original Flieger watches, they've been around forever, and they create timekeeping instruments, and just mechanical instrumental gauges and whatnot, whether it's speedometers on motorcycles to, you know, timing devices for, you know, in the marine industry, with boats and ships and whatnot, with marine chronometers and just various types of mechanical gauges. They understand precision, they understand measuring, and they understand timing. So with all that, they definitely do have a step, you know, in the right direction as far as the industry of making wristwatches. They, you know, from a production standpoint, from a design standpoint, from a functional use case standpoint and legibility, I think it's very clear that this company knows what they're doing with these types of designs. Some comparable models, like I mentioned before, you know, the IWC Mark XVIII Pilot, which is like a $5,000 watch, compared to this one, which retails, well, okay, it's not quite 5,000. It's like $4,900, but this is about 1,900, so quite a bit less. And then the fact that you can get it for under $1,000, brand new, fully covered, and everything, it just blows my mind. So I think it's just a really great offering. And, you know, the bottom line would be this is really just one of the most complete offerings in the segment. If you want, you know, just everything you need from a pilot's watch, and you want to be traditional and really have a solid brand that understands the mechanical engineering side of it as well, and then even from a movement standpoint, from the horological side of it, I mean, they really modify their movements and they do cool things, and I just am infinitely impressed. And this is probably one of my favorite modified Solitas, because they just do such a great job. I think aesthetically, the way the rotor looks, of course the blued screws are great, but they still keep a very German finish to them. They didn't go crazy with a bunch of perlage, which is, you know, definitely more, I'd say, of a Swiss characteristic. It's just really nicely done, and it's very minimalist and extremely legible. Everything's legible, whether it's the engravings on the case back, or even looking at the machining and the parts inside of the movement. And then, of course, the dial is also extremely legible. So I think it's a really awesome option. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.